book lovers, I'm Ashley,
And I'm Kendelle.
and welcome to Bound by Fantasy, a channel all about books and bookish things.
Today we're going to talk about Assistant to the Villain. So this is the first book in this series. The third one is coming out this year, so we're super excited to talk about
Yes.
it. All right. So, I made you read this because I just thought it was just such like a cute, quirky kind of romance fantasy type book. Um, it has the romance in there, but there's not like it's a slow burn, right? Like book
Yeah,
one, book two, slow type burn.
yeah,
We'll see what happens in book three. But it made me laugh. It was really refreshing after like the intense fantasy books. So it was a nice way to kind of break those up, really enjoy a story. So I was like, you have to read this because it made me laugh. At first, I was like, this is a little too quirky for me. And then the more
yeah,
I
the
read
same
it,
thing.
right when
Yeah,
she's
no, I
talking in
totally
her
got
head
the
at
same.
first, I'm like, I don't know, this is so weird. But then as you
Right.
read it, it became like such an endearing trait of her. And I'm like, oh, I love
Yeah,
when she does that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, well, and especially because I listened to it. So I listened to it via audiobook. I was gonna read the physical book, and then I listened to the audiobook, and so yeah, I think that was probably a little different too, because like I got to hear the person saying the things she was saying to herself in her head. So yeah, that was a little bit different.
so if any of you haven't seen this book yet, it is about Evie Sage. And we meet her, and she has just left her job, right? So she doesn't know what to do. She is kind of like not wanting to go home because she doesn't know how to explain that she doesn't have a job anymore. And she actually just gave up a job, a good job, to someone else in the marketplace, right? So she was
Right.
slated to be a nanny. And it was like a really good position, but then she felt a person that was near her needed it more, so she gave it to her. Which, it just shows her character right away, right off the bat. Like she needs this job to support her family, and she just gave it away. So she has just given up the great job and she's going through these woods, right? It's like
Yep.
just casual walk through the woods. Like, okay, sure, sure, girl.
Yeah.
And when she is in the woods, she thinks that she stops right at the stream, and she notices in the stream like there's blood in the water, right?
Hmm.
And for some reason, like I wouldn't do this, she follows the blood. Like,
Right.
what would you have done? Like, would you follow the blood? Because I don't. I'd be like, that means I go the opposite way.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, I feel like she was hearing like noises in the woods too that like sounded like really bad that were,
Yep.
that somebody was being attacked. And so, yeah, I don't know. It seemed like she was, yeah, I don't know if I would have. I don't know. Um, I'm not sure. I also thought like initially that it was an animal or something too. So initially I thought like maybe there was like hunters in the woods or something like that. So I
Right.
wasn't sure what to think, but like I still probably wouldn't have followed it, I guess. Yeah.
Well, especially because at the end of the blood trail, she sees like this animal type figure, right? At the
Hmm.
water's edge, and she thinks like it's an animal, and then turns around, it's a person.
Right.
And she immediately like knows it's the like this person's hurt, and she notes that he's like really handsome, right? And
Hmm.
and I thought it was weird that she knows it's like the villain. Don't
Yes,
you?
right away. Yeah.
Because she even quotes like that none of his posters look like him. Like they're not even close, so far off from what he looks like. He's handsome, he's young, he's not
Right.
where anywhere close to this like decrepit person they put on the posters.
Right.
And it's just I don't know, I always thought it was weird. And I wonder why they make it that she knows so quickly. Like, didn't you find that a little weird?
Yeah, no, I did, especially because like, well, so that's the first time we're meeting him too, right? So I was like, oh, everyone must know what he looks like. But then we find out later that no one knows what he looks like, and all of these posters are so incorrect and everything. And I mean, she mentions that, but like you learn the extent to which like people have no idea who he is. And so yeah, no, that seemed really odd to me that right off the bat she just knew who he was, and she was also like willing to help him right away too. And she wasn't, I think with all of the portrayal of what the villain, what the community has like expected of the villain, that also seemed really odd that she immediately was like just drawn to help him as well.
Right. Right. And especially like when the guards are coming, she thinks about like abandoning him. And like, oh, the guards won't hurt me. And then she's shot by the guards that are
Right.
chasing the villain. And he basically tells her it's because you are around me right now. They don't care who you are. They're just going to think you're with me and they're going to go after you. And she's like, great. But then she finds out, and I like he's my favorite character of why he's there and what he's trying to protect. And it is a little frog, right? Wearing a crown. And
Yeah.
the frog seems to be, and this frog name's Kinsley, and he seems to be like human, like understanding, right? He has these little signs that he holds up
Oh my
and
God,
talks
so
through
cute.
his intelligence. And I was just like, yep, I probably would have helped him with the frog too. Like, Evie,
Yeah.
you're so right. Help this man. I just
I
thought,
love Kingsley. Like he's so awesome, and his little signs that he like holds up and stuff are just like so comical. I absolutely love that.
yes, I think he's like my favorite part of some of the parts in the book is when he
Yes.
like holds up signs in random moments, and you're like, yep, that's what we're all thinking. It's like
Yeah, it's
he
so
just
great.
knows what we're thinking.
Yeah. I've been
So
going to like in Barnes and Noble and stuff, they have like little mini Kingsleys, and I'm like, I have to get one. They're so cute. They're adorable.
I know I feel like I need to so I can put them up by the books on my shelf.
Yeah,
So like I can like separate them because they have like their little spot here and I was like I need something with them.
yeah, that would be super cute.
Especially after I get the third book. I'm super excited. I cannot wait for that to come out. And so after I thought this was weird too. Like she kind of just like opens up, but I guess that's like Evie's personality, right? She just tells
Yeah,
everyone everything. She doesn't hide anything. And she says that, oh, well, I lost my job. And I think it surprises even the villain himself when he's like, okay, you can be my assistant. Like, I'll offer you this job as his personal assistant. I think it surprises him and her at the same time. Did you get that feeling like he's surprised that like he said something to this
yeah,
random person he just met? And she's like, wait, you're the villain. How am I supposed to be your assistant? Kind of thing.
right. Well, and she also just sort of like is like, okay, like right away, pretty much too, without even knowing what that entails, right? Like she
Correct.
doesn't even learn like what does that mean to be the villain's assistant? Yeah. And very quickly, she finds out that he tortures people. And she's
Yes.
just like, okay, I'm just going to distance myself from him, pretend it's not happening or something. But she's just like, that's just what happens around here.
Right.
So that seemed really odd to me as well.
And I think like it's weird because after she accepts it, there's like such a like time jump, right? So it goes to like 5 months past and she's just the assistant to the villain and this is what she does. And she's actually like pretty kick butt at her position and she's really good at it. But she talks about like the heads hanging in the foyer.
Like, I
And
would not be, I'd be terrified to go into work every single day. There's no way.
yes,
And I like could
yep,
not work for somebody who's doing this, like sticking heads on the wall. Like, what's no.
yep, I agree. And then we also talk about Becky, right? So Evie doesn't like Becky, and it's kind of like, or Becky doesn't like Evie, right? They tried,
Mhm.
Evie tried to be friends with Becky right away. Becky kind of gave her the whole shoulder. So we know that there's more to that right away. Like it's kind of like hinted that Becky possibly wanted her job, right?
Mhm.
So, and she's like, I guess what you could call like the head of HR, if you could say that.
Yeah.
So it just has a little quirky, like, oh, they like kind of like have a little tension in the office, and I just think it's fun. Like everyone has that one person in the office that like, yeah, I don't really like you, and I but I have to work with
Yeah.
you, so I'm gonna figure
Right.
it out. And I just feel like that's kind of like almost refreshing in a way too, because sometimes you get characters that like everyone loves and everyone has to like
Yeah.
be friends with them. And like it's kind of refreshing that like she doesn't like she doesn't like her really. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't and she doesn't have to, and that's okay. And like I like how that's portrayed in the book. You don't have to like everyone you work with, and it's
Yep.
okay. You just have to work with them.
Well, and it's not, I think also like they don't like each other, but like no one's doing anything to fix it either. They're just like, this is just how it is. You know, like the villain is not like Becky, you need to be nice to her, or Evie,
Correct.
you got to be nice to her. Like, and that's just, as long as you work together and you can get your work done, like, yeah, you're not going to like everyone that you work with. So, no, I actually really appreciated that too. And that no one was trying to fix the problem either.
Yes. And like at the beginning, she is getting tested. I'm gonna pause for a second. The villain is like testing her right in those first 5 months to like see if she'll stay, and at one point puts a body on her desk, right? Like
Yes.
Evie, I gotta give you props because I would be like, no, that's where I draw the line. Like the heads and knowing like you're morally gray, you don't
Yeah.
kill for the wrong reasons. But the body, like that's pushing it. Like it's a body on
But I
her
don't know that
desk.
she knows either, like, that he is not killing for the wrong reasons. I think she just thinks he's just like bringing people in and torturing them and killing them, at least for a
She
while.
does. So she knows that despite, well, she knows that like despite the torture, he does have some morals. He's not like the full evil. She doesn't know the full extent of it yet, but she knows he's not what everyone says he is.
Gotcha.
So she knows she's trying to figure it out. And I think like it's kind of nice that they showed a little bit of him, but she still thinks he's like kind of the bad guy at the beginning. And like
Yeah.
we know it's probably going to end up he's a morally gray character, does bad things, but is still like a good guy in the end. We just don't know the full backstory. We don't really know what's going on with him, why he's doing this. And I think it's like really, she doesn't give as many hints, I feel like, as other books do. And I feel like you don't really know what's going on and like keeps you
Yeah.
guessing. I don't know how you felt like as the book was progressing. I was like, yeah, I don't know where this is going. And
Yeah. No, yeah, I was not sure where that was going. And yeah, no, it was, I don't know. I'm like, he was testing her a lot, right? And yeah, that would be just a big no. But I'm like, does he like her? Does he not like her? Is he trying to get her to quit? Like,
right.
does she want to quit? Yeah, it was very interesting.
And then, but then we have rare moments where he like cares about her, right? So, like
Yeah,
in that like jump ahead scene, she ends up falling out of her chair because she's super clumsy. Typical, like just of her. Like you see her, you think like clumsy, super friendly.
yeah,
And so she gets hurt, and he kind of laughs because she makes a joke out of it. She goes, oh, yeah, the chair came out and attacked me. And so he chuckles, and it's just not something you picture when you picture a villain. Like they're not
yeah,
nice. They don't chuckle. They don't laugh,
yeah,
and they don't care. And then Kinsley, of course, holds up his ouch sign. And
yes,
it's just it's you can tell that she has an effect on the villain that has not been seen before. And
yeah,
you're like, oh, this is obviously going to go somewhere. But in that scene, we also meet another character who is Tatiana.
yeah,
And Tatiana is a healer. And she's been with the villain for a really long time, right? So she has been working with him, and she is kind of like, you wouldn't put her and the villain together. Let's just say that, right? Because
yeah,
the villain is like dark, broody, like guy, and she's like pink, fluff, like
yes, yeah.
exact
I loved that.
opposite.
I loved that. I thought that was awesome.
Like the pinker the better for this girl. And I'm like, yes. Give it to
Yeah,
me.
that's
Um,
funny.
I just thought it was such a like cute little, I don't know, like opposite to the villain. Like he's this big
Yeah.
beefy guy, but he has like the sweetest little healer you could ever find.
Yeah, and I also thought like it was so interesting because he was very like open with his torture and stuff of just like this
Hmm.
is who I am, whereas like she kind of seemed like a little bit of like I don't know, like, a little bit of villain traits to her too though because she like deals in secrets. So like anytime someone gets healed by her, they have to tell her a
Yes.
secret. And so I was like, where is that gonna go? Like,
Huh?
is it like what is she seems to know a lot, right? Like she's got all these secrets she knows about everybody. And so I'm
Yes.
like, is she secretly like a villain of her own, but like she's kind of got a different
Uses
like
the
way of going
secrets.
about it? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I
I
thought
thought
that
that
was
was really interesting.
interesting. And then I think it's interesting too, like we find this out because EVS Felicity gives up a secret for the healing. And
Yes.
it's just like a typical thing that happens to poor Evie is she talks about how she had a dirty dream about the villain. And the villain is right there. Like, cause she doesn't know. And it's just hysterical because he like clears his throat and then like, oh, hi. So you just heard that. That's awkward.
Right? Although I feel like she also just totally embraces it too. She's like,
Yes.
whatever, like, yeah, you heard that, which
And
is
that
funny.
because she knows there's no point denying it. Like it is what it is. Like it happened.
Yeah.
And you can
I
just
feel
tell
like
that like
I was gonna say I really love that she just like she's very like no like she has like no filter, but she also owns it. Like she's
yes,
not like trying to hide it or apologize or anything. She's just like this is who I am and this is how I am and like it or don't like it, whatever.
exactly. So when Tristan comes to get her from the healer is kind of when we get the setup, right, of the whole book. And it is there is a traitor in their midst, something that Evie set up for because he steals from the kingdom, and she set up this steal or whatever you can say, and it was attacked or ambushed. So it was clearly a trap. And that's when the villain knows there's a traitor in the midst. And they
Mhm.
need to figure out who this traitor is before it's too late.
Right.
Because you can't keep like losing people, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then I thought it was a quirky because again, we don't love everyone that we work with. She's like, oh, it's Becky. And then we can just get rid of her.
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of funny because she's no like she's quirky but sweet and kind to everyone. And then she's like, if it's Becky, I can just oxnay her out of here. And I was like,
Right.
okay, Evie, showing a little bit of your evil side. I like
Right.
it.
The villain's rubbing off on her a little bit.
Yes, yes. It's like the villain is getting nicer because of her. And she's like, I could be a villain too.
Yeah.
So they start out by obviously making a list of the people that it could involve. And she like works through the list and is kind of thinking about the list. And when she is making the list, she talks about like this cool little ink that she got from her dad, and it's like this really pretty color. And Becky notices it what she's doing, and that's why she's like kind of distracting them. Oh, I'm just like making a list and I'm just doing what I need to do, right? In this little booklet she has. And I was like, you are not a good like spy or a sneak. I don't know if the village should have picked you because like you're just so obvious with what you're doing. And the
Yeah.
fact that like she doesn't like try, I don't know, she doesn't hide it enough for me. And I'm like, um, maybe you should take better care of your stuff.
Right. I
Oh
completely
gosh,
agree.
it's
I also thought it was really funny and like just nice too that she like also put herself on that list and
mm-hmm.
that like the
I
villain
agree.
pointed out like well it can't be you and she's like no well it could be me like she's like I am just as much of a suspect as anybody else and she doesn't try to like I don't know even defend herself or back herself up or whatever she's just like you need to treat everyone equally and not like single me out
Yes.
Now he has like an actual reason for why it's not her because of like where she was at the time that it happened.
Right.
But I appreciated that she was just so like open and honest about it. I did think it was odd that she like I don't know, was almost trying to be blamed for it. Like not, but she just wasn't trying to defend herself either. Like I appreciated that she was like, yeah, it could be any of us, but she also wasn't trying to deny that it was her either. So
Right.
that was interesting.
I
Yeah.
do agree. And I think she's right. Like to just put it on there no matter what.
Yeah.
Obviously find out later why. He has such a strong, like, it wasn't you opinion. But um this then introduces Blade, right? He is the dragon tamer. And I'm just gonna say he sucks at his job. Like he is good with the animals, he's good with the creatures, but he doesn't seem to know what he's doing, right? He's getting hurt all the time by this
Yeah.
dragon that the villain got for him, or that he's training for the villain. And so he's always seeing Tatiana, and it's just like, what is going on here? Like, how do you have a
Right.
job? That's immediately what I thought. I was like, this guy doesn't seem like he's capable of doing anything.
Right. I also like highly suspected him, like when I like was kind of hearing that he can't like he's not very good at his job. I'm like, why are you there if you're not really good at it? Like, what were you hired for? And, why is he trying to like play off that he is a dragon tamer? Because he definitely didn't seem like he knew anything about it. So, I don't know. Did you suspect him as the traitor?
I didn't. Just
Okay.
because like he's just I feel like he just doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't feel like he would know what to even do about it. Like I don't feel like he, besides trying to keep himself alive from the dragon, I don't think he would have like the ability to like be a villain and not get caught. Like I think if he was a traitor, he would have gotten caught faster, but
Sure.
no. I don't know. How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would not have been a very good villain or like a very good traitor. But I don't know. I did just like suspect him because I'm like something shady is going on with him, which like we do learn there is something shady going on with
I
him. It
do
just
agree
wasn't
with
what I
that.
thought.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes. There
Yeah.
was definitely like a shady vibe coming from him, but I don't know. Even with that, I couldn't ping him for it. And I don't know why. It was just
He was
something
also
that didn't, I
so
don't
nice
know.
to Evie. Like him and Evie like
Mhm.
got along so nicely. And so I was like, I really hope it's not him. Um,
Correct.
so I think that I mean that could be part of it too. Like I knew there was something going on, but I'm like, I don't. But he was so nice to Edie. I'm like, I really hope it's not him. And I think she was also possibly suspecting him, but was hoping it wasn't him too.
Right. And it sounds weird. I think I was leaning more towards Tatiana at first because she just seems like the person that wouldn't be the most, and that always like triggers something in my brain. Like the sketchy ones that you think are them end up not being them in a lot of books. And I was like, I don't know. She has like a history with him, and like she's
Yeah.
the opposite of him. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and all the secrets she knows too. Like, yeah, no, I would say the same. Like, I wasn't sure what to make of her at first. And like her and Evie weren't super close at first. They definitely became closer throughout the book. But I feel like she was mainly just like the healer. And, she had told her lots of secrets, but like she'd never opened up to Evie herself
Correct.
either. So Evie didn't know her very well. So I feel like that was very suspect too, that like Evie's worked there for how long and doesn't know anything about Tatiana as well.
Right. Besides, like how she appears in the office, right? She doesn't know any like
Yeah,
back and information about her. I did
right.
think that was interesting. And then we have like a quick scene where she goes home for the day, right? And her father has managed to cook dinner because he's traditionally like very sick and has been sick for a while, right? And I don't know. It was just weird that like she talks about how sick he is and how it's this like special sickness throughout the kingdom that affects like people. And then he's like cooking that day. Like, I don't know. I don't know. How did you feel about that?
Well, and he's also like going out to like bars, right, with his friends periodically and stuff. But like theoretically he's too sick to get out of bed most days. So I don't know. I thought that was really odd too. I'm like something weird seems to be going on with him. And also it seemed like he was really like using Evie, um, I guess like pretty early on, just with the fact that like he was doing nothing to contribute to their
Correct.
household. Like he was not helping them at all. Like Evie had to take over like raising her sister, and he was really like not helping whatsoever. Now, if he like sincerely was very sick, okay, but he was going out with like his friends and like spending her money to do that.
Right. Right.
So
And
that
that
didn't sit well
bothered
with me.
me
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
That he like always seemed to feel better and like could go out with her money, or when they like
yes,
scenes where they would be in town and he'd like ask her for money. And I'm just like, you do know your daughter is working her butt off for this money, and
right.
you're just like blowing it. And she and even like comments on it. Like she knows she's just not going to see it again and it's not going for like the right things. And like it kind of stinks. It kind of was almost a little bit to me like Akatar with Feyre, where like
Yes,
she's
yes,
doing everything and like no, like the dad isn't appreciating it. But Lissa, I almost said Lisa for some reason, um, is a better sister though than Farrah
yes,
has,
yes,
because she's young. And if it wasn't for Evie saying like, no, you're staying in school, you are like, it's not an option, I think she would have 100% dropped out and tried to help her.
yeah,
And like she just sees Evie as a mother figure and like really truly cares about her.
yes,
And in this scene, we also get like a little bit where she like thinks about her missing mother and her older brother. And we know that there's something that happened with them. It doesn't give a ton of detail right then, but we know that there's more to that.
yeah. No, I really like Lissa. I also think she's just super cute and like how she interacts with Evie is just adorable. Like she's, yeah, just the little sister who's like, she's kind of like looking out for Evie, but like as far as she can, being the little
Right.
sister too. Like she is sort of like, if something's off with Evie, she notices it and she asks her, what's going on and things. So yeah, no, that whole like dynamic really reminded me of Feyre and Akatar for sure.
Yes.
But yes, very different. Where like I felt like in Akatar, the sisters were taking advantage of her more, and the dad like
Yes.
seemed like he wasn't doing much, but he wasn't like ungrateful, I guess, if that makes sense.
Correct. Correct.
But it
Yes.
felt like the complete opposite here, where like the dad
Yes.
was really like taking advantage of her and
Right.
having her do everything. And her sister was trying to like I agree, I think she would have dropped out as well if Evie hadn't
Yes.
insisted she go to school.
So the next day, she goes to present this list to the villain, right? The list that she created the day before, that again, like she put herself on. And we kind of like get our first like insight to him, right? It's the first chapter where we kind of see like his point of view. And I just thought it was hysterical because he's like enthralled by her humming, right? She like hums as she's working and he like leans
Yeah.
closer to the door to hear her, and he even thinks like he's the villain. Why is he acting like this?
Yeah.
And then like she comes in and she like hits him with the door, and then she's all flustered because like she hurt him and he finds it even more endearing. And it's just cute because it's so cute how he's
It
like,
is.
I should be the villain. Why is this woman affecting me? And I'm like, because
Yeah.
you love her.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think like I love Kingsley too. Like he's just sitting there like watching this whole interaction too. And his like little signs are just perfect at the perfect
Huh?
moments. He's like holding up the perfect signs. And he also like he does it where like only he can see it, like only the villain can see it, or only Evie can see it. He's very like sneaky about his little signs too, which I think is just great.
Yep. And like after she's done and she like talks about how she put herself on the list and he's like, it couldn't be you because you have that gold employment tattoo on you, right?
Yep.
And the guards have similar tattoos that are green, and it would immediately tell the villain if they tried to, it wouldn't allow them to turn traitor, and it would tell him.
Right.
So he's like, take yourself off the list. But it's just their whole interaction in that little part was just so cute. And as like she's leaving, right? That's when, like you said, Kinsley holds up a sign and shows the
Yeah.
villain and it says trouble because he knows like she's gonna be trouble for the villain. He wants to be this big bad tough guy and he
Yeah.
can't seem to be that with Evie around. I'm like, oh, Evie.
Yeah. It's
Um,
so cute.
then I know we get into Edwin, right? He's the ogre that runs the kitchen. And I think it's hysterical because I mean, this is how I portrayed it, but they have like ready this special brew that he makes, right?
Yes.
And it keeps everyone energized. And but it tastes it's yucky looking and it tastes terrible. And I'm like, it's coffee. It's coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee plain tastes terrible. We don't, I mean, other people enjoy it, but I do not like my coffee black. And it's just funny because then like we find out that she secretly makes the villains like super sweet, right? She puts
Yeah.
like
Like
extra
tons of
sugar in
sugar and
there and
stuff.
like cream in
Yeah.
there. And I'm like, yep, that sounds right. And she has to do it on the sly, right? Because she doesn't want Edwin to know, because then the villain would have to tell Edwin that he doesn't like it or
Yeah.
that he's modifying something that Edwin's cooked. And I just find that whole aspect hysterical that like this big bag tough villain wants all this sugar and cream.
Yeah. And that he's also like trying to protect the people he's working for too. He's trying to protect their feelings. Like you would think he wouldn't care about their
Right,
feelings at all. So yeah, no, I thought that was really like endearing. And also just showed the relationship between him and Evie too, that like she is very close to him and that he trusts her with like telling her those things and trusts her to also not tell Edwin. Right.
right. So as she's walking back from the kitchen, right, she sees Kingsley on the floor. And she, of course, like talks like almost like babyish to him and was like, oh, what are you doing on the floor? And like scoops him back up and goes in to bring him into Tristan's office. And that's when she hears that ticking, right?
Yes.
And she keeps it when she goes towards the office, it's getting louder and she finds the source. And of course, little Kingsley's there. Kingsley's there. Danger! This little sign. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
love this little guy enough. And we realized that it's the bomb, and Kingsley was like, then he holds up his next sign. He's like, run. Um, and I was just, I don't know how about you, but like it's Evie, and we know enough of her character at this point. I'm like, this is gonna end badly. Like she's trying to run towards the parapet because like Becky like
With the button.
opens the door for her and like go to the parapet, throw it off the wall. And you just know, like she's clumsy. I mean, she's clumsy day one in the book, and
Right.
we're like, and she even mentions it, like this isn't gonna end well. And I think it's so funny that like right before she trips, right? She says like, "Oh, this is the longest that like I ran without like tripping or something like that." And, and then she trips, of course. Um, and the bomb is not over the parapet, and it's kind of like right there by her. So if it goes off with her heel stuck, she's gone, right? She can't get away from it. She can't get to it to throw it off. So she's like getting, I guess, ready to die. She's thinking about her family. She's thinking about the villain.
Yep.
And come to find out, the villain is was investigating like a safe house, uh, um, where he keeps things. And so kind of like I guess it frustrated me because it's like stops there a little bit. It's like, okay, she's like gonna die, and then it jumps to the villain. And I'm like, what is going
Yes.
on? Like,
Yeah.
I need to know if Evie survives. Is he coming back to a dead body or a live girl? Like, what is going on?
Right.
So
No,
it
I thought that
jumps,
was weird too. Like, did
and
I miss something? Like, what happened?
yes, and I feel like I might have missed something because I read that chapter so fast because I was like, get to her, she's gonna die. Because he's there And he is kind of like where he finds his men and women in the battle with the guards, right? So again, they were betrayed, and he kind of like kills them all because he has this ability to kind of see all the weak spots that people have, right? So he can get to the weak spots. But on his way home, he again is like worrying about the traitor, and when he gets back in, he knows something is wrong. And that's when Becky says there was a bomb and Evie took it. And you can just tell, like, he's like, it's, I have to get to her. Like, it's
Right.
not, oh, great, like, great, she could die. Like any other employee, I'm sure he would just have been like, oh, great, they can die. But it's Evie. And like, he takes off running. And I was like, get there faster. Like, he was not going fast enough for me. I don't know how you felt, but I was like, move faster.
Well, especially because there was that like huge break too. I'm like, is this
Yes,
going on this entire time? Like, what is the time
correct.
span here that's going on? So no, I completely agree because I was like, is she already dead? Like, what happened? So
Right, right.
yeah,
Because like they didn't tell you when the scene with the villain is happening. So you
yes,
didn't know if it was like current, he is like fighting with his guards as she's running with the bomb. Is this before? Like, so you don't know. Like, that's why I was like, is he coming home to a dead body? Is he going to go save her? Like, what is going on? So he obviously takes
right,
off running and he finds her there and she's stuck, right? And the bomb's going to explode. So he actually throws himself over her and then surrounds them both with his magic, and they both end up making it, right? But I was like, can it be any closer of a call? Like, that
right.
was just too close to me. And I also thought he can use his magic to shield them, right? To protect them from the bomb. I was surprised he couldn't use his magic to like just like toss it off of the parapet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
I thought
That's a
about
good
that
point.
as I was like rethinking of the book. I was like, why didn't he just like knock it off? Because then obviously like that whole section of his like castle manor, whatever he calls it, is broken. And
Yeah,
I was because he was one-sided. He was worried about her.
yeah,
But they're both fine. Most of the tower is gone. And it looks like the library is exploded, but not the books, which was great. And then so like the villain has his little hero moment, right? He like lifts Evie up and carries her to Tatiana.
yeah,
And it's just like it's crazy because like he's wounded, but he still like wants to worry about her first. And I was
yep,
like, oh, you are trying to deny it so hard. And you can't. Like this scene right here proves that you can't deny it. You like her. Like
right,
you're hurt, but you're putting her in front of you because of her like sprained ankle. It wasn't even like she broke something.
right. Yeah. Well, and that's also, doesn't he find out in that scene that she's been walking like an hour and a half each
Yes.
day to get to work?
Yes,
Um,
because he tells her that she should go home, and then
yeah,
she's like, then he realizes she's walking the whole time, and he goes, "Oh no, this isn't happening. We're taking the carriage home."
yeah. Um, yeah, which I'm like, I don't know. She's also like very insistent that she enjoys like walking that every day. And I'm like, maybe like once in a while, but walking that every single day in all sorts of weather and through the woods where there's like, she got attacked and shot before by the
Correct.
guards, right? I'm like, oh, it seemed like just take the carriage ride. So,
You would
yeah,
think. But
yeah.
I mean,
But I thought,
luckily they do take
sorry,
the
go ahead.
carriage ride, right? And it's a good thing they take it because that's when we find out about like this mystery wound, right? On her shoulder that
Yes,
she doesn't really explain too much on it, but it's from her former employer. And it's like now hurting her and it's like not really healing. And she
right.
even keeps it from like Tatiana, right? And it's just interesting. And I don't know, how did you feel about learning about the wounds? And I'll tell you how I felt afterwards.
Um, I don't know. It was interesting of like why she wouldn't have told Tatiana. because she also has told Tatiana like so many other secrets and things like that. So that just seems sort of odd to me that she wouldn't tell her, especially because Tatiana like could have potentially healed it for her. So like why not tell her about it and see if she can like fix it, right?
Right.
Especially since she's told all these other secrets. So that, I don't know, it didn't kind of make sense to me why she was hiding it. And it also seemed like, so it was, I mean, we find out later, but I just sort of like right away knew it was some sort of like abuse type situation or
Correct.
something that like, I mean, maybe she was embarrassed about, but it's not like it was, I don't know, someone she was like in love with or something, or like a
Right.
family member. So I'm like, why is she protecting this previous employer, I guess? Like,
Correct.
why bother? I don't know. It seemed odd to me. What about you?
I agree. Like that's how I felt. I was like, I feel like she's almost embarrassed or like scared to
Yeah,
talk about what happened. And I was like, but why? Like,
right.
even like you said, even if it was something like that, she shouldn't be ashamed because she obviously got it from like a pretty awful guy for doing that to her. So it
Right.
was interesting. And obviously, I knew like more was coming from it, but it was an interesting way that they introduced it with like the bumping of the carriage and it like made that wound her. And I was like, hmm, interesting.
Well, and why is it still hurting? Like, is her
Correct.
shoulder dislocated or something? Like, because
Right.
obviously I didn't know very much about it at that point. So I'm like, how is she functioning through that all the time if a tiny little bump affected it as well? So that seemed really odd to
Correct.
me too.
Especially because at the bare minimum, she has been with the villain now for 5 months. And
Yeah,
like, I feel like something like that should have been healed
right.
more than it is. But as they're going back to her house, like Evie's freaking out because like she's bringing the villain home, right? The villain
Yeah.
is coming into her house. He's going to meet her dad and her sister, and she's like freaking out. And then, kind of shocking, is that the villain like meets the sister and introduces himself with his real name. He goes, "Oh, hi, I'm
Yes.
Tristan." And like it's so like subtle, but it's just like what just happened? Like that you just did your real name? Like that is crazy to me. I'm like,
Right.
"Hi, I'm Tristan. How are you?"
I love that, like, when Evie asked him about it too, he's like, I mean, I always assumed you knew because there's a like sign on my desk that has my name.
Yes.
I'm like, how do you not notice that? Working for him for so long. I thought that was really hilarious. But I also
Yeah.
thought it was like super cute that he did introduce himself and was like honest to her sister, especially because Edie was so worried about him because like she didn't want people in the village to know who he was because they would attack him, right?
Right.
Um, and not that he was like, "Hey, I'm the villain" to her sister, but I just thought it was, I don't know, really cool of him to like not just drop her off and like leave, but also to introduce himself to her sister too. It
Yes,
was just
I
super,
agree.
super cute.
I agree. So as like they have their little moment and as he's going to leave, that's when we find out they're going to the tavern, right? And they're going to the tavern because the owner of the tavern is the only place that could have made the bomb that he went off. And for some reason, he needs to take Evie with him. And I
Right.
thought that's interesting. I was like, why
Yeah.
does she need to come?
Right.
Um, but he brings her, and again, it's just showing that like he's attached to this woman. He's trying to deny it, but he's attached because he's bringing her to this place. And at the tavern, um, before Tristan arrives, which I always thought was interesting too, that they don't like go together.
Yeah.
Evie is like kind of accosted almost by like a sleazy former lover, right?
Mhm.
And like he's like kind of like getting like up in her business, and that's when the villain shows up. And I find this part hysterical because she's wearing like a, I guess you would say, a revealing outfit, and she kind of flings herself onto the villain and, and was like,
Yes.
"Oh, this is my boyfriend."
I
And
thought that was hilarious. Yeah. Well, and he just kind of goes along with it too, which I was like, that's pretty cool. But his like shock of it too, like I feel like he was totally just shocked by it, but also he played it off well enough um
Yes,
that like the guy didn't notice either. So yeah, it was that was really funny.
I
I'm
agree.
like, I don't know if that would have been my first inclination to do. It's because they weren't like super super close or anything at that point either.
No.
So that seemed like
I
such
mean, we
a
knew she had feelings for him, and then we kind of got like the inkling that he obviously was having feelings to her, but like nothing was ever talked about
right.
between them. And like he puts on a really good front when she's around, and it's
Yeah,
just, it was kind of like hysterical because he like doesn't know what to do. And then like he gets really mad at like this ex-lover. And like I was like, oh, that guy's gonna die. You
yeah,
know, like he's gonna go and find this man and he's not gonna make it any longer
yeah,
because that's just who he is. He's like the morally gray, like, don't touch my woman kind of guy.
yeah.
But then we find out the real reason that they're there, and it is for Malcolm. And Malcolm comes over, and we find out that they're brothers. And
Yes.
I was shocked about this, like very shocked. And I don't, I like, it's just so like nonchalantly put in there. And they're like, oh, it's like my brother. And I was like, what? Like, wait a second
Right.
here. I
Yes.
guess there's
He just
like
like
so many
sneaks that
little,
in and right
yep,
away is like, I'm just gonna kill you because clearly it was you. Like it's your fault. And Edie's just like, what's going on right now? Like first off, she didn't know he had a sibling at all. And then
correct.
she finds out that it's her his brother, and then he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill my brother. So
Right.
yeah.
Without
I
even
don't
like hearing him
not even
out kind of
asking.
thing.
Yeah, no questions, nothing. He's just like, okay, wait. Which I also think like the brother's reaction is really funny too, because he's just like, all right, you can kill me if you want, but like, can you hear me out first? Like, can we just chat about this? So, but no, I
I
just
feel
think
like
it's
they
kind of
just,
funny how he handles that.
yep, I feel like they just fit together as siblings. Like, go ahead, dude, do it. But can like you listen to me first?
Right.
Um, and we find out that he did make it, right? He did make the bomb, but he obviously he wasn't the one that planted it. He had sold it to a
Yes.
stranger. And he feels kind of really bad for him, right? And he said that it was his mistake, and he feels bad that it almost cost Evie her life. And in a way, it would have cost the sister and the father their lives, right? Because if
Mhm.
Evie died, then the dad and sister wouldn't have survived because dad apparently is
Right.
incapable of doing anything. And the sister is just too little. I mean, even if she tried, it wouldn't be possible for her.
Right.
Um, so Welcome does remember that the man who bought the clock had glowing blue ink on his fingernails, right? So that kind of gives them a where to go because there's only so many people that make like the special ink,
Right.
right? Which is a very good clue. So they decide not to kill each other, which great, good.
Yeah.
And then they go back, right? So she's worried that whoever tried to blow up Tristan using his brother's clock might try to use her too, right? Because we know that they kind of like went after her in a sense that like she would have probably died in the explosion too. Because
Hmm.
Tristan wasn't there, right? And that's kind of where she gets this. Like Tristan wasn't there, wasn't at the place when this bomb was there, and it was close enough, like her desk is in close enough proximity that she probably wouldn't have made it if the bomb went off.
Yeah.
So now they're like, okay, where is this going to go? You know what I mean? Like, how is this going to keep affecting us? Should we both be worried? So we go, normal kind of things happen. At one point, she goes in and she finds the villain like basking in the sunlight, right? And he doesn't realize that she's there. And he just like is like sitting by the window, like just basking in the light. And it's a seat that she had put there, right? That
Oh yeah.
so it's just kind of cute that he's like just basking on the light. She takes a little moment to like, I guess, revel in him. And she, like, you can tell 100% she's definitely falling for him. And she like has her like little inner monologue and she goes, "Don't stare at the villain, Evie." Or
Yeah.
like, "Don't do this, Evie." Like it's just
Don't
her
fall in love with the
monologue.
villain, Evie. Yeah.
Yes. How she like talks to herself in third person in her brain is just so hysterical and it's like kind of refreshing. Because at first, like I said, I wasn't too sure about it, but then as it goes on, it's just like the quirkiness of her and it makes you like love her more because she does that.
Yeah. It totally is.
So then they decide to go see Blade and his dragon, right?
Hmm.
And Blade is dealing with the little skittish dragon who sorry, who like panics after seeing mice, right? And it's like when Evie goes to his room to grab like a training book because the dragon is freaking out,
Hmm.
that's when we find the certification of employment from the king, right?
Yes.
And we think that's it, overdone with. Blade
That's who it
is the
is.
traitor, right?
Yeah.
And especially as Evie like is going to like leave, Blade's there because he probably realized that at some point, oh man, she's probably gonna see that letter and think the worst. So she starts to scream and Blade was like, "Please, please don't say it. I used to live in the city, but found out they were going to sell a dragon egg and he couldn't stand for the dragon egg to be used so poorly."
Right.
So it ends with he Evie agrees that the Blade should tell the villain himself. And she
Yeah.
tells he has to confess before he finds out and thinks he's a traitor. And I was surprised by this. So I just makes me feel like she must have really believed Blade. And I mean, I did too. I don't know why. I just couldn't see him as the traitor. It just didn't fit his personality, I guess you would say. Um, but I was surprised. Like it wasn't like a timeline kind of thing. Like tell him by the end of the day or like tell him right
Yes.
now. It was just like you have to tell him before he finds out. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah. I also like thought it was weird how fast she just believed him as
that's
well.
true.
Um, I don't know. He didn't really have any evidence to point toward like what his truth was either. Um, I mean, I think she just wanted to believe him, but maybe she was kind of like, you need to tell the villain so that he can make the decision himself. Like maybe she was sort of like, I'm going to leave it in the villain's like hands, basically. But yeah, I agree that like it was weird that she didn't say you have to tell him by a certain day or something. There was no timeline attached to it.
Right. And especially because they end up going to see like the suspect or like the next lead, I guess you could say, the person with the special ink. And Tatiana goes with them this time. And it's just like it, you're not going to bring it up to him. I mean, he's right there. And it just kind
Right.
of like goes on the back burner so quickly. And I was like, okay, this is awkward because we know something. He doesn't know something and we're not telling him.
Right.
So I thought it was weird. But then we get another shock that they're going to see this person with a special ink. Come to find out, it's not only Tristan's sister, it's Tatiana's ex. And now I'm just like, wait a second. So it just
Yeah.
solidifies how long Tatiana has been with the villain, right?
Yeah.
She's known him for a really long time, and it's kind of like gives you the aspect of like she picked sides and she picked the villain's side.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess, like a big thing, and it kind of like definitely crossed out her as a potential betrayer, I guess, to me at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. No, I
Because
agree. I feel like once we kind of learned the history of Tatiana, I was like, oh yeah, okay, it's not her for sure.
right,
She's known him a long time and that she did like take his side instead of his sister's side.
right. So the we Claire is the sister's name. And we get to meet her, and she has magical, she can add magic to things, right? And she's most famous for adding magic to ink. And that only two people have purchased glowing blue ink in the last few months. One was an old widower, and the other one was Lark Moray, right? Signed his name with a sigil of the Valiant Guards. Like that's the king's men.
Hmm.
So we know they immediately go that route. So Tristan gets upset. Claire asks, when is he gonna stop what he's doing? And again, we know that he's doing it for a reason. We just don't know why. And we're
Yes.
trying to figure like we aren't getting much. We just like tiny
No.
bits and pieces. And of course, my mind goes in all different directions. And I'm like, what is going on? Why isn't he like, is it his dad? Is it like, what is going on? Because they obviously have a history
Mhm.
between him and King Benedict, but they're like just giving us bits and pieces. And then he does tell her that the story between him and King Benedict is a long one, and he doesn't know how to tell it, right? So because she kind of like confronts him. And it's almost like, yes, finally confront him. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
it's a really long story and I don't really know how to tell it. And says that she has like similar stories in the past. And we do know that, right? Because we know something happened with her mom and her brother, but we don't really know the full story yet.
Yes.
So I did think that was like intriguing, and I think the villain finds it intriguing too, for the fact that they both have like kind of a hidden past, and she doesn't want to tell it. She won't dig into his because she doesn't want him digging into hers, right?
Yeah.
So I do feel like that's a lot of respect, but then I was also as a reader, I'm like, just give me both the stories already.
Right. I feel like it was really, I don't know, like frustrating, but like very different because I feel like often you hear the background stories like so early because they do that in the first few chapters of a book. But this one, it was like, I'm like, are we ever going to learn? Like, we're getting really far into the book at this point, right? So I'm like, are we going to hear what's going on? Like, are we going to learn who the betrayer is? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, I was shocked that we still didn't know those stories at that point in the book.
Right. So then we have another little scene. There's like a lot of little scenes. And she says, well, let's open up the vent in his office so he can overhear his employees talking, right? And
Yep.
as she's jumping for it, she's about to fall. Kingsley has like bad idea put up. And she's like, I got this. And like, of course, she doesn't make it. And Tristan catches her. And then they have like a little intense moment. But then Becky comes in shortly after with Blade's certificate of employment from the king, right?
Mhm.
Except Evie, sorry, just notice is it doesn't have a name on it, right? And Becky says, Evie dropped it, right? So then, of course, Tristan gets mad, thinking that Evie betrayed him despite the tattoo that prevents her from doing so. And she gets mad at him for mistrusting her and she quits.
Yeah.
And I just mean like, wait, what? Like, oopsies. Like it means to me like he's gonna see, oh, you're gonna quit, then like you are the betrayer. And
Right.
I like then the magic that's going to poison her, right? That if she quits, the magic ink will poison her and
Yeah,
slowly
she'll
kill
die.
her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wait, what? Like
Yeah.
she just up and leaves. And
Right.
I I kind of got really mad at the villain here. And I don't know how you felt. Like he has all of these feelings for her, but like he doesn't, I guess, believe her or hear her out and just like lets her walk away.
Yeah. I I don't know. I was also frustrated with Evie because I was like, so you're okay with him hanging people's heads on the wall and like throwing bodies on your desk and everything, but like the second that he doesn't believe you when you haven't even explained yourself, like that's the breaking point, really?
Right.
So, no,
Right?
that seemed weird. It also seemed weird to me that Blade let her keep the certificate in the first place.
Yes,
So like because she said like you have to tell him or I'm gonna show him at some point, but like I just thought it was weird that Blade didn't try to like get it back from her. Um, but yeah, I mean the fact that she's just like hiding it and it has no name on it and stuff is like, well, that's just gonna like, yeah, make him think it is you for sure. Like, what else is he gonna think if you're
right.
committing that, right? So I don't know. She doesn't really like it frustrates me because she doesn't explain
Yes,
herself. And I mean, she doesn't explain because she wants Blade to do it himself, but like he hasn't done it, and she said before he finds out, right? Well, he's found out, so why not tell him at this point?
correct. I agree. And it's just like it's almost like she doesn't believe that he'll believe her, and that kind of makes me upset. Because she should
Yeah,
know at this point that he should. But it all comes kind of to her like a fruition. That's not the right word. Maybe this. But either way, like everything falls apart when she leaves, right? The manor goes into complete chaos mode. People are bickering. She knew how to schedule people that didn't fight with other people. And just like everything seems to be falling apart. And Becky comes and like trying to take her spot. And one part of it, she tries to like give him his drink. I'm gonna call it coffee, but doesn't make it the right way. And then Blade comes into the office, right? Talking about his
right,
dragon. And that's when he comes clean about the letter, right? He finally tells the villain what's going on. He doesn't sit right with him that Evie was blamed for it, that she got fired because of him. And out of character to the villain is he doesn't kill Blade right away, right? He doesn't
yeah,
kill Blade. He gives him like a second chance. And that's like something we don't see with the villain. So
right,
I was surprised. And then, of course, like Tristan feels terrible. And he's like, I shouldn't feel terrible. I'm a villain. Like it is what it is. And even like Becky at that point says, like, you were wrong. Like Evie should come back because Evie kept the place running with all of her notes that she constantly takes about everything. And then the manor is on fire, and only Evie knows where those hoses are to put out the fire.
yeah,
And Tristan really understands that we need Evie back, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not going to get any better because she's not there.
yeah. He realizes that like she's been literally doing everything, and he doesn't. I think he didn't realize like how much she was doing
Right,
until like she wasn't there, and then as soon as she wasn't there, he was like, oh yeah, I just always like assumed she'd be here all the time. So like yeah, the hose thing like that made me laugh. Like it's like because he said, you know, like when they installed it, Evie was like, well, why don't I tell you where they are so that way you can like, you know where they are and how to put it out if there's a fire. And he's like, that's fine, you'll be here. Like, no
right.
worries. And then of course she's not when it happens. So I'm like, all right, that's really funny. Like, and just shows like how she was valued but like undervalued while she was there too.
Correct. Like she
Yeah.
held everything together. But it kind of makes you be like, how did they function before her kind of thing? Because without her, like everything falls apart. And this
Yeah.
really resonated with me being a teacher because like you all have the secretaries in like the school, and without them, the school falls apart. So I was like,
Yeah.
Evie's that secretary, that person we can't live without.
Right.
So we're going to stop here and don't forget to come back. We're going to split this into two parts. So come back and check out part two of The Assistant to the Villain. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and join our community of fellow bookworms.
Yes. See you next time on Bound by Fantasy. Because here the
Bye,
adventure
guys.
never ends.